Hello violinists, welcome to the Pro Strings Violin School. I'm Henriette and this is lesson 22 of the violin class for beginners course. And today we're going to learn to play the fingers on the D string. You may have noticed that up until this point we have learned all the fingers on the A string. So now it's the turn of the fingers on the D string. And to do that we're going to use an exercise in the book. And if you've got a red book, this is exercise 40. And if you have got an older version of the book, it's exercise 55. So I'll play it for you first. So, shall we have a look at the music first before we start to play this? First of all, if you have a red book, you may be missing some of the notes, and that is okay. In the other book, this song has just been extended a little bit, but you get just as much out of it if you play your notes from the red book too. So, when you have a red book, just stop here at the end. And if you have an older version of the book, it goes on a little bit. So, we see a couple of things here straight away. You can see D, 1, 1, 2, and then you get 2, 3, 3, 4, and that is the correct fingering of this piece. Then this note here is again a 4. The 4 hasn't been printed in there, but you've just played this note previously, so you just hold your fourth finger down and you play this same note again. Now in your music, you can see that little flat line here, and that means fingers 2 and 3 are together. So the finger pattern on the D string is exactly the same as the finger pattern that you used on the notes on the A string, in that fingers 1 and 2 have got space, fingers 2 and 3 are together, and fingers 3 and 4 have got a gap between them again. So that is your finger pattern, you see. And this little line here means, remember, fingers 2 and 3 are together. Then when you go from 3 to 4, there is a gap again between your fingers. Now, when you have a good look underneath the notes here, there are these horizontal lines, and they mean how to leave your fingers down. So if you have your first finger and you put it down here on the second note, you leave your fingers down all the way through to the end. So you may have noticed me playing all the fingers on the string earlier on, and we're going to try that in a minute as well. And then the second finger starts here, and you hold it until you can't hold it anymore, because you need the first finger here at the end. And the third finger also stays on the string until the third finger you come across there. Okay. Now you see that, you notice also that all these notes are written as minims. And in America you call these notes half notes. So you play all of the notes with a long bow, and that means whilst we're first going to, of course, concentrate on the left hand and getting all the fingers in place, we will also be working later on the straight bowing. So when you're ready, let's get your violin and let's play this together. I will count us in for 4, and this time I will play the version as it's printed in the red book, so we may stop a little bit before your notes are finished if you are playing from an older edition, but you can then refer back to my earlier playing when I played from the older edition, you see. So here we go, I'll count us in for 4. Make sure you've got a good stance. Let's now check our finger line, our thumb and our tennis ball, so your wrist pushes out. Let's also check our bow hold. Excellent. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that you may not find this too challenging at all. Now, one thing that I want to think about with you right now is, let's put your bow down on the string, on the D string in the middle. And now let's think about our right elbow. And when we play on the D string, this right elbow is a little bit higher than when we used to play on the A string. And I want you just to feel this difference. So if you place your bow on the D string in the middle, and now we want to see this diamond shape that we've got here, these two parallel lines of the bow and your upper arm, and I want you to see that your elbow is in line with this shape. So if this is you, you need to lift up your elbow a little bit. If this is you, you need to drop it down a little bit so that it's all a natural square. So we've got this square here and there, you see. Now let's drop our shoulder and drop our right elbow down so that the bow will go to the A string. And please note the way I say this. I say drop your elbow down and therefore the bow goes to the A string. It's not the other way around. Move the bow to the A string, therefore your elbow goes down. No, it is the elbow that leads the way. Can you see this? My elbow pulls the bow across, as it were, from one string to another. So let's practice that a little bit more and let's get some feel for where the correct string level is, you see. Because when we're playing on the D string, your elbow is that little bit higher. Now I can lift my elbow up without lifting my shoulder up, you see. So can you please check for yourself that you separate those two. When I lift my elbow up, my shoulder doesn't come up as well. I'm leaving my shoulder down, just moving my elbow there. And that's perhaps a bit trickier for some people than others. So let's give it a bit of time to sort that out, shall we? Now when I'm bowing on the D string, my right elbow is a little bit higher, my fingers of my left hand also need to go a little bit further to the left compared with when I play on the A string. So what we're getting now is that your left elbow needs to come under the violin a little bit more, you see. If my elbow is out, it steers my fingers further to the highest strings. And if I push my elbow under, can you see how my fingers move across the strings? And now, when we put those two things together, we get this really nice wobble. Can you see this? When my fingers go to a higher string, my bow goes down. So my right elbow goes down. And when I go onto a lower string, can you see my right elbow comes up, but my left elbow comes under. Can you see that? Now for some people that is really challenging to do, and I want you not to worry if you find this completely undoable and very confusing. As we progress, we will come back to this and you'll eventually find this a bit easier, but this is a weird concept, and I can clearly remember when I first learned this, I thought, that's quite interesting that there is this connection between the left and right hands. So forget about it if that was super confusing for you today. Let's go back now and play the song again. So find your nice stance, check over your bow hold, check over your elbow level so that you're on the, we're actually on at the heel of the bow now. Okay, and check over your left hand so that your fingers hover above the strings. 3, 4. notice that now that you've checked your elbow level, you are much less touching other strings, because there is always this risk that you are going to be touching either the A string or the G string, either side of the D string, you see, where you want to play on. So let's think for a moment what happens if you play this song and you accidentally hit the A string. That means that your elbow has gone a little bit too low. So what you can do to cure that is to lift your elbow up a little bit higher. You can perhaps see here, if you look very closely here, if I drop my elbow down, my bow goes to the A string. So if I frequently, by accident, hit the A string, it means my elbow is too low. So then you lift it up. Only to a certain extent, of course, because if you go too far up, you start hitting the G string, which is not what you want. So if that's you hitting the G string too many times, then you might drop your elbow down a little bit. And this is quite a lot of fine-tuning here, isn't it? It's quite precise. And whilst today this might be a bit challenging, eventually you'll start to feel those string levels and it will be much better. And of course you can hear also what is happening. So if you think, oh, I'm hitting that A string again, it's quite normal. Lots of people hit the A string again. If that's you, do write in the comments section below this video, please, so that other people know that it is really, as I say, it is quite common that people hit other strings, and that this is what you can do about it, you see. So that is enough thinking about string levels now. Let's now think for a moment about straight bowing as well. So what we want to try and avoid is this. Can you see? I have forgotten now to move my hand forward, which would have left my point of my bow right there. So if this is you and you feel the note slackening off towards the point of the bow, it means your hand has gone too far to the side, you see, and you want to straighten your bow and keep your hand in front of your body like that. So this time when we play it, let's focus on the straight bowing, shall we? So check out your left hand, your finger line, your thumb and your tennis ball. After 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Improving your technique all the time. That's super playing, well done. Now, you know that in violin playing you have to multitask. We've said that many times by now. So you've noticed also that in today's lesson again I have focused on only one thing at a time. Our first priority was our elbow levels, our second priority was our straight bowing. And we're going to do one more thing, see if we can check all our techniques for today. And that is when you have your fingers on the string, I want you first of all to check that you leave them all down so that by the time you get to the middle of this piece you've got 4 fingers on the string. So that's my first thing that I'm thinking about. And then I would like you to think whether you are squeezing your fingers a little bit too hard so they collapse here in this top joint. And when that happens, sometimes people are pressing too hard. So if that's you, let's just see if you can lighten up your fingers and get your fingers nice and round. If for one reason or another you can't reach your pinky on the string, try bringing your elbow around a little bit more. So your elbow comes really far underneath the violin, and as you get more experienced in violin playing, your shoulder will open up a little bit more so that you can bring this elbow further under. So that will get easier with practice. So on our final playing today, let's work on the left hand a little bit, and I want you to double check before we start that your thumb is really nice and loose. So it's not squeezing the neck of your violin here. It's just gently lying there. Here we go, after 4. Now, for those of you who've got an older version of the book, I shall play the whole version. Okay, so if you play from a red book right now, just stop when your music is finished and I'll play along with the other people who might be playing from an older edition. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stay on your fingertips now. Have you got all your fingers on the string still? Well done, super playing. And you have improved many different aspects of your technique now. And that, while that today took a few goes to put it all together, eventually it will bring all these techniques together and you will progress much further for just having paused at each of these techniques. So well done for taking some time with this. Now, I'm hoping that you will play this exercise a couple more times and each time focus again on each of those individual aspects, and then we're going to make things a little bit more challenging in our next lesson. So I very much look forward to seeing you then. Goodbye.